In Nottingham's Bestwood estate, a ruthless crime lord held the city in fear's grip during the early 2000s. One night in August 2003, a shotgun blast meant for his nephew missed, killing an innocent bystander outside a pub. This tragedy wasn't a mere gangland hit. It unleashed a brutal wave of retribution that shook Nottingham to its core. How did a petty thief from a broken home become Nottingham's most feared kingpin, and how did this misfired shot unravel his multi-million-pound criminal network? Stay with us to uncover the chilling story of Colin Gunn's rise, reign, and ultimate downfall. Welcome to Crime Pulse. If you're new here, hit subscribe and join our growing community digging into the UK's most dangerous criminal underworlds. Like, share, and turn on notifications so you never miss a case. Colin Gunn's ascent to power began in the tough streets of Nottingham's Bestwood estate, a working-class area marked by poverty and limited opportunities. Born in the mid-1960s, Colin and his older brother David grew up in a chaotic home where their mother often clashed with police trying to rein in her son's behavior. By age 14, Colin was in youth custody for crimes like burglary, theft, and fighting, while David, slightly older, got into schoolyard scraps and started breaking into garages. "I was quick with my fists," David later shared on a 2022 true crime podcast, looking back on his teenage years. These early run-ins with the law were small time, but prison exposed both brothers to bodybuilding, steroids, and criminal contacts that would shape their futures. After serving time for a £10,000 check fraud in the late 1980s, Colin came out stronger and more driven. Teaming up with David, he set out to control Bestwood in the early 1990s, starting with protection rackets. They approached local businesses, pubs, corner shops, small workshops, offering security for £100 a week. Colin would point out flaws in a shop's setup, hinting at trouble if they didn't pay. When owners refused, their businesses faced break-ins, fires, or smashed windows, often the same night. A follow-up visit, with Colin gesturing like he was holding a gun, usually got results. David handled the street-level intimidation, using his physical presence to enforce compliance, often warning non-payers they'd be dealt with. By the late 1990s, the brothers shifted to drug trafficking, taking over North Nottingham's heroin and cocaine trade. David played a key role, using his reputation to push out competitors. "We told them they were done selling here," he explained years later. Those who didn't back off faced beatings, stabbings, or hospital stays. With a crew of about 30 loyal associates, the Bestwood Cartel built a £10 to £15 million empire through drugs, extortion, and armed robberies. Colin kept a low profile, running operations from a plain bungalow, but showed off his wealth with a Porsche 4x4 sporting a power license plate and other high-end cars. David managed the day-to-day, making sure dealers and enforcers stayed in line. Their tactics mirrored notorious UK gangs like the Krays, blending violence with a public image of protectors. Colin, bulked up by steroids, was known for knocking out rivals with a single punch. David was just as brutal, once serving nearly 5 years for a vicious attack on a man who accidentally bumped into his daughter at a pub, leaving the victim permanently scarred. Another stint of 3.5 years came after David killed a man with one punch in a separate incident. Their actions hit Nottingham hard. Businesses shut down under the pressure of extortion, and the city's reputation took a hit. From 1998 to 2003, university applications dropped 15% as parents steered their kids away from what was being called Shottingham, a city outsiders avoided. In Bestwood, the cartel took on a dual role. They stepped in where police presence was weak, acting as unofficial enforcers. Locals, wary of law enforcement, reported thefts or vandalism to the Guns instead of calling 999. The brothers' network tracked down culprits, delivering punishments, public beatings or worse, to keep petty crime in check. "We were just looking out for our people," David said, rejecting comparisons to organized crime syndicates. They also won over some residents with gestures like funding huge Guy Fawkes night fireworks, shows that drew crowds, or slipping £50 to £100 in envelopes to elderly neighbours for birthdays and holidays. A 2024 study from Oxford University found that this governance approach cut petty crime in Bestwood by 20 to 30% at the cartel's peak, as they stamped out rival gangs and kept order to protect their drug profits. But this control came at a steep price. Fear dominated the estate, and Colin's growing addiction to cocaine and steroids made him unpredictable. turning minor disputes into violent outbursts. But how did this mix of charity and terror keep Bestwood under their thumb? Colin Gunn's criminal operations in Nottingham relied on a network of corrupt police officers, which allowed his cartel to evade law enforcement during the early 2000s. At the time, Nottinghamshire police were focused on a series of unrelated gang shootings, which diverted attention from the Gunn brothers' growing influence in the Bestwood estate. Colin strategically placed informants within the police force to access critical information. Charles Fletcher, who joined the police in 2002, was recruited by Gunn as a clean-skin informant with no prior criminal record. Fletcher provided access to the police national computer, supplying Gunn with details about investigations and potential threats. Another officer, Philip Parr, collaborated with Gunn from 2002 to 2005, sharing information about ongoing police activities. These officers were compensated with cash, cocaine, designer clothing, or luxury items like watches, ensuring their loyalty. This flow of information enabled Gunn to stay ahead of raids, monitor rival dealers, and identify informants. The corruption created significant distrust in the community. Witnesses hesitated to cooperate with police, fearing their identities would be leaked to Gunn. Vicky Garside, Colin's partner and mother to one of his 3 children, was assaulted after a police database error incorrectly listed her as a prostitute. A detail passed to Gunn through his informants. Another individual, Jane, a former model, became entangled with Colin in October 2004 after meeting him at a pub. She was coerced into a relationship and witnessed drug deals in secretive settings. Jane endured Colin's volatile behavior, including a violent incident where he accused her of being a police informant and attacked her. She escaped into witness protection, but left the program twice, suspecting leaks from Gunn's network. Her fears were later validated when evidence showed she and her daughter were targeted. In a 2007 Mirror interview, Jane described her ongoing life in hiding as a life sentence. David Gunn, Colin's brother, enforced the cartel's control on the ground. He managed security operations, intimidating witnesses and ensuring compliance from local businesses and residents. The brothers' influence peaked when they publicly threatened Detective Chief Superintendent Phil Davies, head of the crime squad, demonstrating their confidence in their network's protection. This eroded police morale, with officers reluctant to patrol Bestwood even for double pay, leaving the estate under the Gunn's control. But a single act of violence would soon shatter their empire. The Gunn cartel's dominance began to unravel in 2003 when a personal dispute escalated into a fatal confrontation. Michael O'Brien, a low-level dealer caught up in Nottingham's gang rivalries, clashed with Jamie Gunn, Colin's nephew, and a bouncer at the Sporting Chance pub. The conflict arose when O'Brien's former partner began a relationship with a cartel associate and got a tattoo of his name, which O'Brien viewed as a personal insult. During a late-night lock-in at the pub on August 3rd, 2003, Jamie refused O'Brien entry and hit him with an ashtray, publicly humiliating him. O'Brien, later telling Nottinghamshire Live that he feared the Gunns would kill me, no question, retrieved a shotgun from his home. At 11:45 p.m., he ambushed Jamie's car as it left the pub, firing through the driver's window. The shot missed Jamie but struck Marvin Bradshaw, a 22-year-old passenger, who died instantly from severe head injuries. Jamie survived but was deeply affected, covered in Bradshaw's remains and already struggling with addiction to drugs supplied by the cartel. His health deteriorated rapidly, and after O'Brien's conviction in 2004, sentenced to life with an 18-year minimum, Jamie succumbed to pneumonia, his body weakened by grief and substance abuse. Colin, who viewed Jamie as a son and potential heir, was devastated. He convened a meeting at the Standard of England pub, a cartel hub later demolished, with around a dozen trusted enforcers to plan retaliation. Initially, they targeted O'Brien in prison, but heightened security thwarted the effort. Colin then shifted focus to O'Brien's family, specifically his mother, Joan Stirland, a 53-year-old nurse, and stepfather John, a retired factory manager, both uninvolved in criminal activities. An attack on their Nottingham home, likely a warning from the cartel due to their connection to O'Brien, made them relocate to a modest bungalow in Trusthorpe, a quiet coastal village in Lincolnshire, adopting new identities to avoid detection. They took steps to sever ties with their past, avoiding contact with Nottingham and living discreetly to ensure their safety. Colin Gunn, determined to exact revenge for his nephew's death, exploited his network to locate the couple. Through corrupt contacts at a building society, he obtained their new address, a breach of personal data later uncovered during a police investigation. Phone records showed that on August 7, 2004, Gunn traveled to Trusthorpe, with his mobile device pinging local cell towers, indicating he was scouting the area to confirm the Stirlands' location. The following evening, two cartel enforcers, John Russell and Michael McNee, arrived at the bungalow. At approximately 6:30 p.m., as dusk settled, they forced entry into the home. John was in the living room watching television when the attackers shot him multiple times in the head and chest with a handgun, killing him instantly. Joan, startled by the gunfire, ran upstairs in a desperate attempt to escape. The assailants pursued her, cornering her in a bedroom where she pleaded for her life. Despite her pleas, she was shot twice in the head, dying at the scene. The killings were methodical, with forensic evidence later indicating the use of a silenced pistol, underscoring the calculated nature of the attack. In court, prosecutors described the murders as ruthlessly efficient, highlighting the cold precision used against two civilians uninvolved in criminal activity. The brutality of targeting an innocent couple in their home sent shockwaves across the UK, amplifying public outrage and intensifying pressure on law enforcement to dismantle the gun cartel. The murders marked a turning point, drawing intense scrutiny to the gun cartel's operations. The audacity of targeting uninvolved civilians like the Stirlands exposed the extent of Colin's reach and prompted a renewed focus from law enforcement. The Stirland murders prompted Nottinghamshire police to launch an extensive effort to dismantle the gun cartel. Between 2002 and 2006, the force conducted 81 operations, many involving covert tactics, leading to over 100 arrests and the seizure of approximately £5 million in drugs, weapons, and cash. Officers worked long hours, often at the expense of personal time, to disrupt the cartel's operations and restore public trust. The Bestwood estate, previously avoided by police due to safety concerns, became a focal point for these efforts as law enforcement sought to reassert control. Operation Utah focused on Colin Gunn's drug trafficking and his role in the murder conspiracy. Police employed surveillance techniques, including CCTV footage, intercepted phone calls, and GPS trackers on cartel vehicles to map Gunn's activities and connections. Low-level dealers, facing lengthy prison sentences, were persuaded to provide information about the cartel's operations, offering key insights into its structure. Operation Salt targeted the corrupt officers within the force. Charles Fletcher, who had been recruited by Gunn before joining the police in 2002, admitted to accessing the police national computer to warn the cartel about planned raids and investigations. Philip Parr, who worked with Gunn from 2002 to 2005, confirmed he had leaked sensitive information in exchange for cash and drugs. Both officers were convicted of misconduct in public office in 2006, exposing the extent of corruption that had protected the cartel. Undercover operations played a significant role. In 2003, Detective Neil Woods, on loan from Derbyshire Police, posed as a drug buyer to infiltrate the cartel. He built a relationship with a low-level dealer struggling with heroin addiction, offering small gifts like baseball caps to gain trust. After 4.5 months, the dealer introduced Woods to a mid-level operative managing the cartel's Mansfield operations. During a tense meeting, the operative questioned Woods' identity, holding a knife close to him as a test of loyalty. Woods maintained his cover, later gathering detailed information about drug distribution routes, drop-off locations, and the cartel's hierarchy, which led to 19 arrests. A critical moment occurred when Fletcher was assigned to Woods' backup team. Woods noticed Fletcher's evasive behavior, such as avoiding eye contact, and raised concerns, leading to Fletcher's removal and eventual exposure as a cartel informant. The investigation into the Stirland murders was thorough. CCTV footage from Trusthorpe identified suspicious vehicles near the bungalow, while mobile phone data confirmed Gunn's presence in the area on August 7, 2004. Forensic analysis of the crime scene, including bullet casings and blood patterns, indicated a professional, execution-style attack. A cartel associate, who later became an informant, provided testimony linking John Russell and Michael McNee to the murders. Raids in early 2005 uncovered weapons and disposable phones, further implicating the pair. Their 2006 trial at Nottingham Crown Court presented compelling evidence, including text messages coordinating the attack and documents tracing orders back to Gunn. Russell and McNee were convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment with minimum terms of 30 years each. Colin Gunn's trial in 2006 was a significant milestone. Prosecutors compiled a 300-page case file, incorporating wiretapped conversations, witness testimonies, and mobile phone records that tied Gunn to the murder conspiracy. Although he did not personally carry out the killings, his role in orchestrating them was clear. On September 28, 2006, he was convicted of conspiracy to murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years, meaning he will not be eligible for parole until 2041, when he will be 74, and only with a record of good behavior. David Gunn, while not implicated in the Stirland murders, was convicted for operating an amphetamine trafficking network and received an 8.5-year sentence. Since his incarceration at HMP Long Lartin in Worcestershire, Colin Gunn has continued to exhibit defiant behavior, maintaining his influence and challenging prison authorities. In 2010, he lodged a complaint with the prison's ombudsman, securing a ruling that required staff to address him as Mr. Gunn rather than by his surname alone. The decision was publicized in the prison magazine, a move that highlighted Gunn's ability to assert control even within the confines of a high-security facility. In 2013, Gunn was implicated in an attempt to bribe a prison officer as part of an alleged escape plan, leading to his classification as an exceptional escape risk in March of that year. Authorities discovered he was using smuggled mobile phones and SIM cards to communicate with associates outside, attempting to manage remnants of his criminal network and issue threats. This prompted his temporary transfer to a high-security unit at HMP Belmarsh, described as a prison within a prison, before his risk status was downgraded to high in September 2013, after the intelligence was deemed unreliable. Between 2023 and 2024, Gunn challenged his continued high-risk escape classification in the High Court, arguing that it subjected him to stricter conditions and limited his chances of transferring to a lower security prison or securing parole by 2040. His legal team claimed the Ministry of Justice relied on outdated or unsupported evidence, but Mr. Justice Saini dismissed the challenge in March 2024, affirming the decision as lawful based on Gunn's history, including the 2013 escape plot allegations. Additionally, in 2007, while at HMP Frankland, Gunn was involved in an assault on another inmate, reportedly a terror suspect, which added to his reputation for defiance. Court documents from his later legal challenges also revealed an incident in 2013 where another prisoner passed a note to a guard with the address of the guard's disabled brother, implying coercion on Gunn's behalf, further illustrating his attempts to exert influence from behind bars. The Bestwood Cartel's activities left a lasting impact on Nottingham. The murders of Joan and Joan Stirland, along with the death of Marvin Bradshaw, devastated families and instilled fear in the community. Survivors like Jane, who entered witness protection, continue to live with the trauma and ongoing concerns about safety due to the cartel's reach. Despite these scars, the successful police operations, which led to over 100 arrests and the dismantling of the cartel's network, restored public confidence in law enforcement. The convictions of Colin Gunn, his enforcers, and corrupt officers like Charles Fletcher and Philip Parr demonstrated that even deeply entrenched criminal networks could be brought to justice through persistent and coordinated efforts. For more in-depth explorations of true crime stories, subscribe to Crime Pulse, where we uncover the details behind cases that shape our world. Join us to stay updated and share your thoughts on this case in the comments.